greatest sports debate show on the internet.
I will take my victory lap now because who was the one that was saying the Buffalo Bills window is closed? Oh yeah, that's right. It was me.
Championship rings. Starring Brandon Lewis.
Wait a minute, who's the one that didn't see Brandon Cooks clearly has the ball in his hand, goes down to the ground with one knee on the ground, and then that's when they say it's an interception.
Honestly, I'd rather watch AHL All-Star stuff than the NBA All-Star game.
And we are here on a Tuesday, championship rings. Welcome, and I'm Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. That is Ungar to the Max, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show. You know, Josh, the NFL season may be over with, but we have a ton to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and as I said in the intro, I'd rather watch the AHL All-Star stuff than the actual NBA All-Star game. Well, maybe I have to rescind that statement because the actual All-Star game was good for the NBA. But All-Star Saturday night, I didn't even watch it. I went back and watched some highlights. Bad.
So I will say, and I texted you this, and I said this on the show last week. I did what I said I was going to do. And for the first time, I did not watch All-Star Weekend live. I taped both the Saturday event and the Sunday event. For the record, I had no idea that the Friday Young Players Showcase game was a Peacock exclusive. I couldn't even find the game. I knew it was on. I legit could not find the game. I had to come to find out it was on Peacock. But Saturday night, the one thing I will say is, while in my opinion, yes, I agree with you, it was a massive disappointment. The dunk contest needs a complete overhaul. It was just bad. I think the one good thing about it was they did start with the main event, which was the 3-point contest, which I don't know how I feel about the fact that Damian Lillard didn't play in the whole season, and yet he was allowed to be in the 3-point contest, but it was entertaining nonetheless, and I guess that's what it's about. And yes, was the games, because that is the thing. It was 4 separate games, right? It was not one all-star game. So was the games on Sunday, 3 out of 4 of them competitive? Yes, they were. My issue with everybody saying, oh, this was such a massive success, is that everybody is attributing it to that it was USA versus the world. And I don't think it was that. And I don't think it was this round robin format. I think it was certainly this, that Victor Wembanyama came out and said, I'm going to put maximum effort into the All-Star game. And once he did that, the other players followed. And I think that's all we need. We need Wembanyama, we need Ant, and we just need a couple of the new leaders of the NBA as the OGs are going to be departing from this All-Star game soon. Like, I think you could very well, easily, in my opinion, go back to the East versus the West, or do young versus old, or do, like, you could do any format. To me, it's about effort. It's not about that it was just this format, round robin, USA versus the world. All we need is a little effort.
I completely disagree with you, because we've tried East versus West before, and the players just did not give a rat's ass. They really didn't. And I get it. You could put money on the line. I don't think the players would care anymore. When you put on a USA jersey or you're representing your country, that makes you care that much more. That's why I think Victor Wembanyama came out and said, I'm giving max effort. And the world didn't even have me on it.
He's the only one that gave effort last year. Let's put that in. Now, I will say, I think that this format of the 4 12-minute quarters does force you to be a little more competitive because you're only playing 12 minutes at a time. However, My issue with it is this. Now, and maybe by hook or by crook, you may say, well, it doesn't really matter. But in my opinion, now, all the records, all the stats books for all stars that we're going to look at historically are all going to be messed up because, Kawhi Leonard, let's say, he scored 31 points in the second game, I think it was. But I don't know how many points he scored, maybe a couple in the last game. And you're going to look at that and you're going to say, wait, they played two separate games. How do we even that out? So that's where I have a problem with this format is historically, to me, it's going to mess up everything in the future.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I don't think you can just do one game of USA versus World. So this is the best.
I think you could, because I think that all stars need to be earned. That's the other thing. I thought that there was way too many all stars, to be honest with you. Some of them did not deserve, and they were just mostly on there because they had to fill a team format. I think you could very well do one USA team versus one world team, and I think you would get similar effort. The problem
I did like that with the US, the way they organized the US Stars and US Stripes teams. It was basically, I think it was the Stars were the young guys and the Stripes were kind of the OGs.
Yeah, it was organized by age, which I mean, for an all-star game, like that would be a cool idea in itself. Like, so I think all these ideas you can try. I'm not hinging on that this is the exact format. Now maybe they do it again next year, right? Who knows? And I also think this. There is a portion of, as soon as the Super Bowl ended this year, the NBA, and it's been like this for the last couple of years, right? We pay attention to more NBA, obviously, after the Super Bowl. But this year, going into All-Star Weekend, it was all about, the NBA has a tanking problem. The NBA has a free-point problem. The NBA has an All-Star game problem. The NBA has an effort problem. And Adam Silver basically got dog-walked in the media this entire week, including from yours truly on my podcast. So I think, the NBA collectively may have come together and said, we need a good night for our league.
Yeah. And to touch on your point about the dunk contest, like I said, I was out doing stuff, but even if I was at home, I wouldn't have wasted my time watching All-Star Saturday Night. Didn't watch a single second of it. The only reason I know what happened is because I saw highlights on social media. But no, I was not going to waste my time on it because All-Star Saturday Night has been horrible. The last time I legitimately remember the dunk contest being amazing, even watchable, was Aaron Gordon versus Zach LaVine. That's the last time I can legitimately say the dunk contest was actually good.
Yeah, and here's the other thing about the dunk contest this year. There was no props whatsoever.
Yeah, and like Mac McClung said, no, I don't want to do it. And you know who I will put the blame on for the mess we are in with the dunk contest? The man many consider to be the GOAT, the 4-time NBA champion. He led the Cavaliers back from a 3-1 deficit in the 2016 NBA Finals. The man who is rumored to be coming back to Cleveland over the offseason. He wears number 23. Yeah, LeBron James, this is your fault. All your fault. Because
go on.
Remember, he kept there was a while where he kept teasing, yeah, I'll be in the dunk contest, but he never did it. And so all the star players kind of saw that and were like, okay, I don't want to do it either. If he's not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. And so,
well, there's a very easy solution, in my opinion, of fixing the dunk contest. which is get rid of the G Leaguers. No one cares about them. You take every single All-Star and you put them to a fan vote. And the top 4 players that get voted on are automatically in the dunk contest and they cannot deny and they have to compete.
You know what? The other solution I have is don't even have NBA players in the dunk contest. If you go on the streets, there are some great dunkers out there.
Well, that's what Max McClung should be. He should be a TikToker instead of a G League player.
But no, I get what you're saying. But by the same token, like some of these guys that are YouTubers or TikTokers, whatever you want to call them, they might not be great.
That's what the Celebrity All-Star game is for. That's not for NBA All-Star Saturday night. Saturday night should be what showcase the greatest stars in our sport at the skill set that they do. And let's celebrate legends, future players, and current players. Which is why, to me, and I've said this before, I get rid of anybody who is not an All-Star, G Leaguer, or a guy they bring in for the skills competition, like outside of legends and a WNBA participation. I am having current All-Stars involved in this. That goes for the skills competition, that goes for the 3-point contest, and that goes for the dunk contest.
Like I said, the last time I was truly interested in NBA All-Star Saturday night was when they did Steph versus Sabrina. Like, there was just something about that I'm like, I love this. Like, this is great.
See, and I think you can incorporate the WNBA stars into the skills competition like how they used to do back in the day. I would have one NBA player, one WNBA player, and one legend, and it can be from the same city, but they can do a layup, a free throw, a 3-pointer, an elbow jumper, and shoot half quarters, and they have to make all 5 of them in a timed event, like it used to be back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're on the right track with the actual All-Star game itself, but All-Star Saturday night needs a complete and total revamp.
Yeah, like I am very wait and see. I thought the All-Star game was good. Again, I thought it was a little gimmicky. And I get it. It's All-Star weekend. It's not supposed to be, this end all try hard and all out. But I still don't think it should be a gimmick. What have I always told you and what have I always said? Gimmicks are made for professional wrestling, not professional sports.
Yeah, I understand that. When the score is like 200 to 195, it's like, okay, clearly you guys didn't try. Why should I give a rat's ass?
Well, no, it's not that. It's when the score's like 250 to 230, 200 to 175 with the best players on the court. I think, old All-Star games that we loved and enjoyed used to be 170 to 150. But the reason why I'm advocating personally to go back to the Western format is because, I remember 2014 when a young Kyrie Irving, who was on the Cavs, won the NBA All-Star Game MVP. But guess who was also on that team? LeBron. And we could fantasize and we could think of, hey, one day could LeBron play with Kyrie back in Cleveland? Of course, it ended up happening. That's what, to me, All-Star Weekend is about. Is, oh my God, LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, they're all on the same team. Or, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Jalen Brunson, all these stars on the same team. Instead of this gimmicky, play to 40 sort of format. Like, I just want the best players in the world all on one court.
No, I understand what you're saying. But, as you told me in the past, players don't really care about divisions in the NBA. And to a certain extent, I don't think they really care about conferences either. We saw a number 8 seed make it all the way to the NBA Finals just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what would make them care about conferences.
Okay.
You put home court for the finals on the line.
So you're talking about like what Major League Baseball did for the All-Star
Yeah.
game.
Yes. You go back to East West and you put finals home court on the line. And not only do you do that, but you change the finals back to the original 2-3-2 format, which makes home court even more valuable in that format, in my opinion.
Okay, I wouldn't change the format back. I like the 2-2-1-1-1 format that it is now. But I do understand what you're saying. I don't like that part. See, again, to re-emphasize what I was saying last time, that's why I loved the MLB All-Star game was the winner gets home field advantage for the World Series. Think about it. Why did the Cleveland Indians have Game 7 of the 2016 World Series at Progressive Field? It's because the American League won the All-Star game.
And by the way, baseball does a 2-3-2 format for all of its series.
And that makes a little more sense because Major League Baseball during the regular season does typically 3-game series or 4-game series.
Yeah. Well, the NBA has been doing more of the sort of home and home series.
Yeah.
Sometimes you play 2 straight games in the same building against the same team.
Yeah. It's weird.
I think the Heat and Bulls, didn't they play 3 straight games against each other, like 2 in Miami and then 1 in Chicago?
Well, that was partially because a game they were supposed to play in Chicago got postponed.
Yeah, but they had that like a week before, and then they had a home and home, so they were playing each other like 3 times in a 2-week span regardless.
The Heat and Cavs did that in Miami where they played each other like 2 times in 3 days, and they're going to be doing it again here in Cleveland.
Yeah. Outside of All-Star Weekend, there's been a lot of talk about tanking in the NBA, specifically because of what the Utah Jazz have been doing.
Remember when I said before the season the Utah Jazz would make the playoffs? Remember that?
Yeah, I think we're going to file that under a Josh was wrong category because now Lori Martin, Jared Jackson, go ahead.
Dude, I wasn't even just wrong on that. I was like, saying incredibly wrong doesn't even match how wrong I was about the Utah Jazz.
By the way, they don't even know how to tank right because they're still winning games when Lori Martin and Jared Jackson sit the entire fourth quarter. But Adam Silver came out. He is so vehemently against tanking that he is considering potentially getting rid of the lottery and the entire NBA draft altogether.
So I've heard this conversation. I don't think they're going to actually get rid of the draft because think about how many small market teams like Cleveland, Charlotte, maybe not Memphis because Tennessee doesn't have a state tax, but Cleveland, Charlotte, Milwaukee, teams like that.
There goes any chance of getting any star player for the draft or free agency.
Bingo. That's exactly my point.
But Adam Silver said he's open to it, and he's open to all options. It's on the table.
I don't think that's like that serious.
I mean, he's the one that said it. He's the one that said he'd think about getting rid of the draft if it came down to it.
When he says getting rid of the draft, I don't think that's what he means.
Well, what else could that mean?
Like completely changing the format of it.
Well, how do you completely change the format of a draft?
That's what the part I'm not sure of.
The NFL doesn't have this issue, and they're the only league that doesn't have a lottery. And by the way, the Jets are in the top 5 every year. They still can't figure it out. And neither can the Browns and these other franchises. So why can't we just say, hey, Wizards, you've been bad forever. Excuse me. Here's the number 1 pick.
Because they probably still screw it up.
Exactly my point. Do the NFL model. You're bad, you get the first pick.
Yeah. I honestly, like, what's funny is with the NHL, they also do a lottery and a regular draft. And yes, some of the teams stay bad, but sometimes you these teams are able to start putting it together if you get the right piece.
By the way, the NBA has been doing the lottery for years. And and I've said this on the show before, I do think certain years the NBA draft lottery is rigged. I 100% agree with that. But guess what? How do you think the Spurs would have got Victor Wembanyama? It certainly wouldn't be because, they walked out and, won a lottery. No, they tanked and they got the number one pick. Excuse me.
Yeah. Philadelphia tanked, but it didn't really work out for them. Joel Embiid hasn't been able to stay healthy. They could have gotten Jason Tatum. Nope. They wanted Markelle Fultz, and, well, that worked out well for them.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, the NBA does not have a tanking problem. The NBA has a general manager office problem. The Spurs are one of the most well-run teams in the league. Bad for a couple years. All of a sudden now, after 1 year, they are back in NBA Finals contention. And why do the Oklahoma City Thunder have a war chest of picks? Because their general manager, Sam Presti, is one of the best in the league.
Yeah. And it's basically guaranteed that pick from the Clippers is going to be in the lottery because they traded two of their three best players.
Yeah.
And Kawhi's not going to be able to carry them, which I still don't get why the Clippers did that because they had been playing better, and yet they still decided to blow it up.
Well, I think they realize that they're not real championship contenders.
You're most likely right, but I do think the NBA does have a tanking problem. So I don't agree with you on that. But
what's the problem?
But here's my thing: is yes, they have a tanking problem, but the teams who are tanking aren't benefiting the way they think they should be. Like Utah has been tanking for years, and they're still stuck in the basement. Like Washington, they've been bad for years, and yet exactly, and yet these teams continue to just trip over their own feet. So yes, the NBA has a tanking problem, but at the same time, the teams aren't benefiting from it. So in this case, I think two things can be true.
Somebody brought up, well, what if whoever doesn't make the playoffs, what if you all just have the same odds for the lottery? And I'm like, yeah, but then, like, let's say a team, like Dallas, who walked out this year, a team who just missed the playoffs and ended up having this year, they got the number one pick when all of a sudden Cooper Flagg's going to a pretty good organization. That's not going to be the case every single year. And I will say this is going to be a more important conversation because as we're going to talk about tonight, we have stars now because of NIL and because of better coaching and because the NBA finally, after years and years and years, has embraced college basketball. We have legitimate stars now coming out of the NBA draft where I think draft picks going forward are going to be more of a valuable commodity.
Yeah. Plus, you have guys who are trying to go back to college after not working out in the NBA G League, like the guy from Alabama.
Yes.
And the court ruled, no, you can't do that. Which I agree with that. If you leave college to go to the NBA, you can't come back to college. That's not how that works. Sorry, no.
You could if you technically didn't get drafted.
Yeah, no. I still say no.
If you don't get picked up by a team after the draft and you're just hanging out there, I mean, why not go back to school?
Okay, that's different. But if you're in the G League, no, you can't.
I agree with that. If you're in the G League, I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, I misunderstood what you said. But
so
you were saying if a player goes undrafted and nobody signs him,
Yes.
Yeah, then yes, they should be allowed to go back to school. That's fine. But if you get drafted, even if you play 30 games, let's say, not even a full season, and you decide, hey, I want to go back to school, no.
So the NBA, in my opinion, has a 3-point problem. They still might have an all-star problem. They have a regular season problem, and I think they have a playoff, a little bit of playoff fatigue problem. I think the playoffs lasting almost 3 months is ridiculous. But my bottom line is they have way too many more problems to worry about than the Jazz and Hornets not figuring out how to tank correctly.
That I agree with. Man, I can't even say I was incredibly wrong about the Utah Jazz. I don't know what I was thinking.
But think about what all these sports shows, the week of the Super Bowl, ones like ours, we have spent the first 26 minutes on our show today talking pretty much. I mean, the All-Star game is an on-the-court thing, but almost nothing about being on the court. It's all about off-the-court issues.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And one of the biggest problems the NBA has in general is they don't market their stars.
Well, that's very interesting. Did you hear what Adam Silver said about that over All-Star game weekend?
I did not.
He is right on this. He said, people are finding our streaming at record rates and our cable viewership is through the roof. Yeah, it is, because you have a partnership with NBC where last year you were on TNT. Cable to broadcast is different. And yeah, numbers are up on streaming. You want to know why? Because you didn't have any numbers on streaming last year and you put all the games there. Like the big number and increase in All-Star game viewership, I think partially has to do with the fact that people were tuning in because the Winter Olympics were right before it or right after it, excuse me.
Yeah. By the way, I like that the NFL gives NBC the Super Bowl when the Winter Olympics align. I know that this year was the second time that's happened. It also happened when the Rams played the Bengals. I personally really like that.
Yeah, the NBC is in a jackpot, man. You talk about the Super Bowl, All-Star weekend, and then the Winter Olympics in a 2-week span.
Yeah. And they're going to be getting Major League Baseball as well.
And I'm excited for that. Speaking of baseball, I will spoil alert here and say that I do have a couple of baseball rivalries in here, as we've been teasing this segment for weeks. Me and Josh vehemently disagree on what are the best rivalries. We don't necessarily disagree on that it is a rivalry. We disagree on how we feel about the rivalry, our excitement going in every game, how much the rivalry matters. And I know this list is going to be different for both of us, and I don't know if either of us are going to have the same rivalry on both lists. That's how different I think this could be.
I have a feel. I'll tell you this, it was hard trying to put together this list because there's so many rivalries I looked at. I'm like, I like that one, but I don't know if it's top 5. And
no, I was the same way, which, this whole argument has stemmed over Duke and North Carolina, as well as Ravens, Steelers, and a couple other
spoiler alert,
rivalries.
Those are my top 2 rivalries.
No surprise there. And just to tell you, spoiler, neither of those 2 are on my top 5.
Damn.
So, again, just to show you what the difference is between our 2 thinkings, I went with more current rivalries, more so than historic rivalries, with history tied into the current aspect of the teams.
Okay.
So, I'll start here. I'm going to go from 5 to 1. So 1 is my top rivalry, to be clear.
Okay.
Number 5, from Major League Baseball. These 2 teams have played each other in the last 2 postseasons, once in the divisional series, once in the wild card round. These 2 teams battled all the way neck and neck to the division till the very last day of the season last year. Kind of biased because we live in the city. I have Guardians Tigers at number 5. I think that this will be moving forward one of the MLB's best rivalries, if it isn't already. Both the teams are young, both the teams are talented, both teams have played very similar styles. There's clearly a rivalry from the fans on both sides with the geography connection. And again, the last 2 times these 2 teams have played in the postseason have been magnificent baseball.
I will, before you continue, I will tell you this. I do have Cleveland, Detroit on my list, not the Guardians and Tigers, though.
Number 4, we're going to the National Football League. We're going to one of the best divisions, if not the best division in all of football. This is the oldest rivalry in the NFL, and it is going to become one of the rivalries in the NFL if it's not already moving forward, because the Bears finally have a quarterback to compete with the Green Bay Packers. I have Bears Packers at number 4.
Okay.
At number 3, we're staying in the NFL. This is a very recency bias answer because I don't think this will be a rivalry for long, but I think the rivalry started this year, and I think over the next 2 years, it will be even more epic than what we had this past year. These 2 teams just finished playing what you and I deemed after the Super Bowl to call the real Super Bowl in the NFC Championship game.
I like where you're going with this.
Rams, Seahawks.
I like where you're going with that.
Number 2, I said it a while ago, maybe a year ago on this show. I thought this rivalry has jumped Yankees, Red Sox as the best rivalry in baseball, bar none. They have all the star power. They have the fights. They have the playoff battles with some epic games.
I know where you're going with this one.
Dodgers, Padres.
Okay.
And number 1, without a doubt, in my opinion, may not always be the best product on the field. And this is more of a fan rivalry because these 2 fan bases cannot stand each other.
Oh, I know what rivalry you're talking about. It involves your team.
No, it doesn't. Because they have an acronym called That Team Up North. We're going to college football. Ohio State, Michigan, the game, the rivalry. That is my list.
The fact that you did not have Eagles Cowboys on there as an Eagles fan?
It is not. I told you this 2 years ago. The Commanders are now our biggest rival. The Eagles and Cowboys are not as big of a rivalry as it used to be because the Cowboys are not as good of a team as they used to be.
I was fully expecting Cowboys Eagles to be on your list.
By the way, they were in consideration, as was Steelers Ravens, as was Duke North Carolina, Alabama Georgia in college football. I considered as well, but that, in my opinion, has lost some luster since Nick Saban has left. I feel the same way about Alabama, Georgia. So there's a lot of rivalries to me that have just lost a little bit of that luster because of external factors, if you will.
I will tell you this, Yankees Red Sox is not on my list. Like, part of it is that rivalry gets shoved down our throats. Like, anytime Yankees Red Sox is on, it feels like they put it on national TV, whether it's Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN or on Fox on Saturday. Like, I get it, but as much as I, love seeing the Yankees and Red Sox playing each other, it gets a little, like, it loses some of its excitement level, if you get what I mean.
Totally agree.
And I want to love that rivalry again. I really do. Their playoff series, I loved their I think it was a wild card series last year. I loved that series last season. And I'm like, this is what Yankees Red Sox is supposed to be. This is it. But it just gets shoved down our throats so much. Kind of like how Roman Reigns was shoved down our throats during the Vince McMahon days, and everybody just said, no, no. Kind of like how Cody Rhodes is now.
All right, Josh, let's get to your rivalries, bud.
Okay. I also have a Cleveland-Detroit rivalry at number 5, but not Guardians-Tigers. Although I did agree with your analysis on that. But I think because JB Bickerstaff is now in the Motor City and it kind of really started this season, especially in that second game. Temper seemed to flare a little bit, and I was like, thank you. This is a rivalry I've been wanting to see reignite. Cavs, Pistons.
Oh, it used to be. The mid-2000s, it was a big rivalry. If you notice, by the way, I didn't have any NBA rivalries on my list.
Yes.
And Lakers Celtics didn't even come into consideration for me. So.
And I understand that totally.
That's where I stand.
Like, I have kind of like what I was just saying about Yankees Red Sox. I feel kind of the same way about Lakers Celtics, that they try to shove it down our throat.
Now, I think if you want to ask me what are my all-time rivalries that I'm invested in, Cavs Warriors might be number 1.
Yes.
But it's not obviously a current rivalry.
No. But it really does feel like Cavs Pistons is on the verge of becoming a legit rivalry again.
Sort of maybe what you thought Cavs Celtics could have been. You know, it does feel like Knicks Pacers could become a thing again if Tyrese Halliburton were to get back. Maybe Knicks Cavs or Knicks South, maybe somewhere with the Knicks.
Yeah.
Or Detroit.
Yeah, Knicks Pistons, I think, is the one that could really come to fruition. I did really think about Cavs Celtics because you know how much I love that rivalry. I've talked about it. It just missed. At number 4, I'm surprised you didn't even have this one on your honorary mentions list. And I get it. Nick Saban is no longer at Alabama, but it's still the freaking Iron Bowl, man.
Well, my reason is, when's the last time Auburn was good?
Yeah, but when Alabama plays Auburn, if you watch the Iron Bowl this season down in Auburn, that game came right down to the final seconds.
It did. I mean, that was the most memorable Iron Bowl since maybe the one where the Alabama field goal kicker missed the kick and Bama or Auburn returned it back.
You also had, I think it was Jalen Hurts. No, it wasn't Jalen Hurts. Bryce Young, I believe it was, throwing that game-winning touchdown pass in Auburn.
I don't remember that one at all.
Or it might not have been Bryce Young, but it was one of the more recent Iron Bowls where Alabama was trailing and they needed a game-winning touchdown to, be victorious. And the quarterback, I think it might have been Bryce, but don't quote me on that. He hit. It wasn't Devontae, because it wasn't during COVID. It was one of the more recent ones in the last few years. But he found the receiver in the back of the end zone for the game-winning touchdown. Of course, you also mentioned the field goal kick, the game known as the comeback in 2010. So I'm just like, that rivalry has had so many moments. And yes, Auburn hasn't been great in years. I get it. But still, it feels like when it's the Iron Bowl, that game's coming down to the wire. Even if Auburn really has nothing to play for. At number 3, I'm not surprised you didn't have any NHL rivalries on there because you're not a big hockey fan. But the Battle of Pennsylvania, it is real. Penguins, Flyers. As a Penguins fan, I cannot stand the orange and black of the Flyers. I do not like them. As well, there's a number of rivalries I could put here for the Penguins, like the Boston Bruins, the New York Rangers, or the Washington Capitals, but it's gotta be the Flyers. Um, Flyers fans do not like Sidney Crosby. they they've had some memorable Stanley Cup playoff matchups. And it's just a fun game anytime the Penguins play the Flyers. At number 2, Duke, North Carolina. Nothing else needs to be said. You had the freaking game-winning shot just a couple weeks ago. That's what Duke, North Carolina is. You've had so many memorable players in this rivalry. Tyler Hansbrough, Shane Battier, Christian Laettner, Michael Jordan, just to name a few, Antoine Jameson, Tyler Hansbrough. I could go on.
JJ Redick.
Yes.
Jason Tatum.
Yes, Jason Tatum, Zion Williamson.
Yep.
You've had legendary head coaches, Roy Williams, Mike Krzyzewski. North Carolina went on the road and beat Duke in Cameron Indoor in Mike Krzyzewski's last home game. They meet in the Final Four, and North Carolina wins to end Mike Krzyzewski's coaching career. And then at number 1, Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 18 was the perfect example of why I love this rivalry.
I'll agree with you there. Now, I almost had it at number 5. I will tell you. The reason why I took it off, and again, I looked at it more like the current state of the rivalry. I wasn't sure who the Steelers quarterback is going to be next year, and I don't know if the Steelers are going to actually stink or not. So that's basically the reason why I didn't have it at 5.
I like that Grandizer said this. NHL rivalries, because there are some great ones. You got Rangers, Islanders, the Battle of New York, Bruins, Habs. That's Bruins versus Canadians. For a while, you had Red Wings, Avalanche. That rivalry has kind of fallen off a bit because the Red Wings moved from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference. As I said, you've got Penguins, Flyers, Rangers, Capitals, Penguins, Rangers, Penguins, Bruins. God, there's so many great rivalries in the NHL. It's hard to remember all of them.
And I was right. We did not have one of the same rivalry within our top 5.
No. For God's sakes, I could have put USA Canada on this list because if you remember in the 4 Nations, what was it, last year?
Correct.
They dropped the puck, and what immediately happens? They dropped the gloves.
The one NBA rivalry I was thinking of that maybe could become something down the road, depending on if they play again in the postseason, Nuggets, T-Wolves. If we remember the epic 7-game series they had, if they play again, if that turns into something, I think T-Wolves, Thunder, Nuggets, Thunder, somewhere out west, there's going to be a rivalry in there, I feel like.
Thunder Nuggets feels like it has more of a chance because all signs seem to be pointing towards Minnesota being the team that moves from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I agree with that. Grandizer, by the way, says old-time rivalries, new-time rivalries, one that has cooled down. Sharks Red Wings started in the mid-90s and ended around the 2000s.
As an NHL fan, I really don't remember Sharks Red Wings ever really being a rivalry. I would say it's more the California teams that have a rivalry with each other, whether it's the Sharks and Ducks, the Ducks and the Kings, because Anaheim and LA are basically next door neighbors, Sharks and Kings. I never really thought of Sharks and Red Wings as a rivalry. Oh, another one I forgot, Blackhawks Blues, Chicago and St. Louis. How could I forget that one?
Well, Josh, we go from talking about rivalries to talking about potentially a new format for college football because the Big Ten has released their idea for a 24-team college football playoff, which would basically include 23 of the best teams and then one spot for the at-large of 6. The first and second round games would be home games like the first round is now for the CFP. But the catch is it would eliminate conference championship games.
So I like that the first and second round games would both be on campus because I love that. It adds a new dimension to the college football playoff. Could you imagine if that Alabama-Indiana game had been played in Bloomington on Indiana's campus? That would have been fantastic to watch.
Yeah.
So, like, I get that they want the Rose Bowl and some of these prominent bowls to have a role in the college football playoff, but it's hard to beat, being on campus. There's just something.
No, I mean, I think you can make the argument that the college football playoff should be separate of bowl games outside of the national championship, and you should have like an NFL model where the Super Bowl is the only neutral site game. Well, what if in college football playoff, what if the national championship is the Rose Bowl every year, and that's your neutral site game?
Yeah, I'm on board with you on that one because, like, Indiana was the number 1 seed. Did they really benefit from that? No, because they still had to play Alabama out in the Rose Bowl. They had to play Oregon, I think, in the Peach Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right on that, and I think you're right on the fact that the seeding for the new CFP, the only one it benefits, in theory, was the teams that had a bye, but yet Indiana is the only team in this era to get a bye and go on to win a game after having a bye.
Yeah. And I personally don't like that it gets rid of conference championship games. I know that's been one of the points of contention over the past few seasons. I understand it. Like, for example, why did Alabama get in this season when they got destroyed by Georgia? But by the same token, Alabama went on the road and beat Georgia in Georgia. So
yeah, I mean, that's the point of then, well, why does conference championship games even matter? I mean, this year I felt like the Big Ten was a special case because Indiana and Ohio State were the best 2 teams, and they were basically fighting for a number 1 and number 2 slot. But that's not going to happen every single year in the same conference. It was a rarity. And, like, both those teams were locked into the college football playoff. They really didn't need to play another game per se, though it's hard when you're ranking seeds based off a committee. They need to just have a formula. They need to get rid of the committee. And I think basically strength of schedule should probably be paramount. And I don't know if you need conference championship games because it's like, well, Miami didn't even play in the ACC championship game, and yet they made the national championship game.
Yeah. So under this new format, I'm not sure if Miami still would have been in the tournament.
Miami would have 100% been in because all they're doing, they're taking the top 23 teams in the country.
Oh, okay. So you would have gotten teams like Vanderbilt and Texas in.
All of them would undoubtedly be in it. So it's the 23 top teams, and then there's one like at-large bid for one of the smaller schools, like a James Madison or a Tulane.
Which, as we've seen over the past couple seasons, those teams don't belong in the college football playoff. But
what was my worry when I said they're going to expand this to 12, then they're going to expand it to maybe 16 and maybe 24? I think college football is, instead of March Madness for basketball, it's going to turn into December Madness for football, which as sports fans, you can make an argument. It's great for us. It's more football between college and the NFL. But in my opinion, they're going to have to figure out the schedule. I mean, does this start the first week of December? I still say the college football playoff needs to end by January 1st, or otherwise it's too much football fatigue by the time we get to the NFL postseason. You know, and I know that they don't want to mess around with rivalry weekend and the Iron Bowl and, the game with Ohio State, Michigan, always being the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So I don't know what the solution is there.
Yeah, I really don't know with that. But it's also like, I loved that Texas played Ohio State at Ohio State. They're going to do part two this coming season in
Yeah.
Texas. I love that we're getting these types of games. I think Ohio State and Georgia have an upcoming home and home series.
I wish it was in the middle of the year more than at the beginning of the year, personally. Like,
I kind of wish that I understand that. Like, although I do like that, like the rivalry games are at the end of the season, but by the same token, I kind of like that with the NFL, you get Ravens Steelers, for example, in week 7, and then you might get it again in week 15 or
you could get it week 1, and that's why I've been advocating. Well, maybe you don't do Ohio State, Michigan week 1, but like maybe you do Ohio State and Indiana's good now, or maybe Ohio State, Penn State, or maybe Georgia, Florida, like one of your conference games that isn't your main rival.
Yeah, like they're doing LSU Ole Miss when Lane Kiffin comes back. They're doing that week 3, I believe. So
Okay.
early in the season, I think I saw that on the SEC schedule, if I'm not mistaken. But
I think overall, the one great thing to this will be, and this is trying to not be a knock at ESPN directly, but the reason why the Big Ten wants this instead of the 16-team format is because per the college football broadcasting rules, once you get past 16 teams, you have to get the other media partners involved, which would be NBC, CBS, and Fox, which I think is the reason.
That would mean Gus Johnson is calling a college football playoff. Run!
Which I think is the reason why the SEC wants to keep this at 16, because obviously ESPN would have control.
Which I personally like, because Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler are the best play-by-play duo in college football, without a doubt. You know it's a big game when they're calling it. So I hope they're the ones calling the Ohio State-Texas game in Texas this season. I would imagine they will be, unless it's the same week as LSU Ole Miss.
No, it's not. The Ohio State Texas is week 2. I do know that.
Okay. So, I think I know where College Game Day is going to be for week 2, and then where they'll be week 3.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we get to our only NFL topic of the night, which is the fact that Tyreek Hill, who during his prime was one of those electric wide receivers, maybe in the history of the league, he is now over at the Miami Dolphins. They released him. And the interesting thing about this, Josh, is I heard this story the other day that, we all remember he had the brutal knee injury this season early in the year in September.
Against the Jets.
Yes, he just started walking with assistance last week.
Interesting. The conventional thinking on this is he's going to go back to Kansas City and link up with Mahomes, which, again, it makes the most sense. He never should have left Kansas. Excuse me.
Go ahead,
he never should have left Kansas City in the first place. But I understand he wanted more money, and the Dolphins gave him that. Kansas City wasn't willing to.
And they traded him. They did not release him, and he signed with Miami. This will be the first time in his career he will be a free agent.
You know where I would like to see him go? Jacksonville. I think him with Brian Thomas and Trevor Lawrence, I think that would be.
They have Myers too, and we'll see. It sounds like Travis Hunter, by the way, is going to be converting to a full-time corner. So, I thought about this, and a lot of people want to say Kansas City. I actually don't think the Chiefs are the best place for them. They have Hollywood Brown, they have Worthy, they have Rasheed Rice. Kelsey's coming back, I would believe, at some point next year, not at the beginning. Like, I think Tyreek needs to go to a team that's young, where he can be, if he's healthy, and I don't think he's going to be the full Tyreek Hill, but where he could be that guy to where he could be the Stephon Diggs, like what Diggs was to the Patriots. So I have a couple of teams out there.
Okay.
One of them is actually the Patriots. I think he would be a great addition to that offense, which I think does need more speed. If they bring back Diggs, to me, he's a little bit of an upgrade over Pop Douglas in the slot. He expands the field more for Drake May. I think Travion Henderson will get better in the passing game. You have Hunter Henry, and maybe they draft another tight end to mix in there. I think with Mike Vrabel and that discipline and just not a lot of pressure on him to be the number one guy, depending on the money, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I think the Giants make a lot of sense. Because Matt Nagy, who was his offensive coordinator in Kansas City, now he's the offensive coordinator with the Giants. He goes to a young team in Jackson Dart. They're not paying Jackson Dart a lot of money. Sure, they have Malik Neighbors, though he's coming off an injury himself, and they have Wan'Dale Robinson. They don't have a very good tight end threat, and Cam Scatterbo is going to be good in the run game, but they need that guy opposite of Malik Neighbors to take the pressure off him. That could be Tyreek Hill. And one more. I'm going to throw this out there. This team, if he signs in this place, he would instantly become the team's number one wide receiver. Why not here in Cleveland?
Oh, God.
The reason I say that is because do we really trust Andrew Berry to draft a wide receiver? I know I don't. If he drafts Cardell Tate, I think it would be a great pick, but I don't trust him to do so. And even if Tyreek Hill is on, one good wheel per se, I think he would instantly come in and be the best wide receiver on the Browns. He'd be better than Jerry Jeudy. Harold Fannin may be the best overall receiving option on the team. Now that David Njoku is not going to come back, but they don't have anybody legitimate on the outside. Tyreek Hill would make that wide receiver room better instantly.
You really want Tyreek Hill to be alongside Deshaun Watson? I don't.
Well, I want Tyreek Hill to be alongside Shedeur Sanders, not alongside Deshaun Watson. That's a whole nother can of worms. I want nobody besides Deshaun Watson.
No, I meant because of all the off-the-field stuff that both of them bring to the
I understand, and you know what? It's right up Andrew Berry's alley, so I really don't care. Let there be more of a media circus in Cleveland for all I care. Maybe it'll take some off of Shedeur.
Maybe. I mean, the Browns haven't been willing to commit to Shedeur, so who the hell knows?
It sounds like Deshaun Watson may start week 1.
What about Buffalo as an option for Tyreek?
Yeah, totally.
Or the one I would actually really like to see if he doesn't go to Jacksonville, because for some reason Jacksonville just stands out to me. Him alongside Brian Thomas and Jacoby Myers, I really like that trio alongside Travis Etienne. What about him in Baltimore with Lamar?
Well, they have Zay Flowers already. They have Bateman, Andrews. I mean, the problem is I think him and Zay Flowers are basically the same player.
Yeah, but you could have Tyreek on one side and Zay Flowers on the other.
Well, I like Bateman on the other side because Bateman's a taller receiver. I like the differentiating where you have one big receiver and one technical receiver, one speedster. I actually don't think Tyreek fits there.
Okay. I would say Chicago, but I don't think they need him.
They have too many receivers already.
Yeah.
Green Bay needs a number one, but they need Matthew Golden to develop. They don't need another speedster.
I agree with you. Like I said, what about Carolina, actually?
I like the young group they have, But to me, he's only going to Carolina if he feels like that they have a legitimate shot at the Super Bowl, which I don't think he feels like they do.
Well, since you're saying that, I know they have Puka. I know they have Devontae.
Why not? That
Yeah.
would be a one that I would say, why not? The Rams would be a good fit too.
Yeah, we saw what they did when they
Yeah.
when they had Cooper Kupp and they said, "Oh, we're gonna go get OBJ."
Yeah, I mean, I'm only saying the Browns because I think Andrew Berry could pay him a bag if that's what he wants.
I agree, but Kansas City feels like the no-brainer.
See, I don't know about that because one, his injury, we don't know how healthy he's going to be. Two, we don't know if Mahomes is coming back early in the season. And three, they have a lot of mouths to feed that's not Tyreek. Is he willing to be the number 3 or number 4 option?
If he were to go back to Kansas City and be with Andy Reid and Mahomes, I think he would.
Because, I mean, do you disagree with me? I don't think he's an option over Worthy or Rice. And I would argue over Kelsey, the way that offense is ran.
Let's see. Panthers has studs in T-Mac and Coker. Tyreek would ruin that balance. Yeah,
I sort of agree with that. Coker's a very underrated receiver. He could replace Xavier Leggett, who has been a little bit of a bust. You know, maybe, but again, it feels like a weird fit there with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's see. Rams, no, they don't need the headache. They got Tutu Atwell as their speed guy, and they can draft.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think Tyreek is going to be a headache. I think this is going to be, I'm in one of my last stops. I'm going to be on my best behavior type guy. Because what injuries do to most athletes, especially one that horrific, they humble you.
Yeah. But again, just like with all the off the field stuff, yes, the Browns have a track record of bringing guys with off the field issues. I mean, for God's sakes, they brought in the receiver from Texas who had off the field issues.
And back in the day, obviously, Josh Gordon.
Yep. So it would be the most Cleveland Browns move ever.
I'll say this. If you tell me so, I'm already planning on early in the year if the Eagles and Browns have a game that doesn't align schedule-wise. I want to go to a Browns game this year because I want to see Shador. I would pay money to go see Shador, and I would pay money to go see Tyreek Hill.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you said that. Because this goes back to an NBA conversation that we were having earlier. Because we've been having this whole conversation about all the problems that the NBA has, right? But one of the things that people are talking about is there's not a face of the league, you know, and yet we talk about how, like, oh, I'll go through the turnstiles to see a Jalen Brunson, or I'll go through the turnstiles to see a Victor Wembanyama. But I don't, yes, the NFL has that, but do you get where I'm going with this?
I think the NBA has one. And I think he showed it on Sunday by his effort in the All-Star game. I think Wemby just put his stamp on it and said, this is my league now.
See, nobody has really taken that mantle. Like, you don't see, Wemby is probably the closest thing, but because, yes, you're going to get people saying, yes, I want to go pay money to see the Spurs because I want to see Wemby, even if they're playing the freaking Charlotte Hornets or the New Orleans Pelicans. I get it. But I don't think you're going to see, oh, he's walking to the arena dressed like that. I'm going to dress the same way. Or, like,
I mean, and has some of that in him. And, you know, I don't want to make this a race thing, but basketball is a majority African-American game, and I would say audience, and I think Ant sort of connects with them more. And I think Cooper Flag, maybe with his style, could connect with more of a, and again, don't want to make this a race thing, but more of like our, like the Caucasian white audience. Like I think that's sort of what you're looking at is those three guys There may not be another LeBron or MJ, but I think those three guys together could be your faces of the league, similar to what Larry Bird and Magic Johnson did.
Like Shohei Ohtani has basically become the face of Major League Baseball, whether we like it or not.
He absolutely has.
Right. Like whether you like what the Dodgers are doing or not, in this case it doesn't matter. Like,
and whether you like it or not, Mahomes is the face of the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would probably say Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon are the face of the NHL, but you can't.
I think LeBron is still the face of the NBA. I think Steph is sort of like there with him, but when people talk about the NBA, remember we did this segment a few weeks ago. Steph Curry is still the number one in jersey sales.
Yes, but like, SGA, for example,
not going to be the face of the league. Doesn't have the personality and doesn't want to be the face of the league.
That's exactly what I was getting at. So thank you for saying that. Like,
he may be the best player in the league, and that's debatable. He may be, but he's not the face of the league. That's a completely different conversation.
No, that's exactly where I was going with this. So I'm glad you said that. Like, yes, he's the reigning finals MVP. Yes, he's the reigning league MVP. But that doesn't mean he's the face of the NBA. Like, when Kobe was still around, there were a lot of people saying, Kobe was the face of the NBA.
And I don't think he ever was. I think Shaq was more the face early on, and then I think LeBron sort of became that. Because face of the league is good at the microphone, in commercials, representing the NBA on even, if you want to, political platforms and promoting the game and marketing the game. It's not just being the guy that puts up 33, 34 points a night.
No, I agree with you. So it's like we have a lot of guys in the NBA that could be the face of the league. Excuse me. But I don't think anybody has taken that torch and run with it. We were talking about it during our rivalry segment earlier. There's not like a definitive rivalry that we can say is the top rivalry in the NBA right now. We were both saying it. There's rivalries that could move into that slot, but there's not a definitive one right now. So for me, there isn't a definitive face of the NBA. Like you said, maybe Ant could take that slot, but he has said, I don't really want it. Victor has said, I don't really want it.
Well, no, I didn't hear that from Victor. Victor basically said, this is my league now.
I feel like he has said that in press conferences that he doesn't really want to be face of the league.
He said he doesn't like the term, is what he said. He never said I didn't want to be that guy.
Okay, maybe I just misheard him then. But nevertheless, I think that's part of one of the NBA's issues. To go back to that conversation, it's hard when you don't have that one guy that you can constantly put on commercials. For God's sakes, how many times do we see Shohei on commercials? How many times do we see Patrick Mahomes in commercials?
How many times are we still seeing LeBron and Steph in commercials? Because the NBA has turned into baseball. They are nostalgia driven.
Which I like that, but at the same time, if you've got young guys like an SGA, Ant, Luka, Cooper Flag, guys like that, okay, maybe not Luka as much, but you get my point.
Who should be the face of the NFL, NBA, MLB? Okay, I don't know about the NHL, and the WNBA is and will always be until she retires. Caitlin Clark, there's no debate about that. She instantly became the face the minute she stepped on a court at Iowa and took over the nation. Yeah. MLB is Shohei Ohtani, no doubt about it. We already talked about that. As for who should be the face of the NFL, I would make an argument it should not be Mahomes. It should be Josh Allen, because I think Josh Allen relates more to the American people just because of his look, his personality, his voice, all that more than a guy who does talk like Kermit the Frog. But Mahomes has won more. He's been in more commercials. He's seen more. He's more polarizing. And then I think the NBA, it's a difficult question because the NBA is an American based sport. So, as much as I love Victor Wembanyama, I would love it to be, in my opinion, Cooper Flag. I think it'd be really cool to have Cooper Flag and Anthony Edwards sort of be the modern day Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, where it's like white guy, black guy, represent the NBA as it moves in its future.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'm sorry about that.
Josh is still the face of Brit.
Yeah.
Thanks. But yeah, I mean, face of the WNBA, that is most definitely Caitlin Clark. That's not even a question. Face of the NHL, like I said, it's probably either Nathan McKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche or Connor McDavid. I wouldn't say it's Sidney Crosby anymore or Alex Ovechkin, as much as I love them. And Ovechkin is still playing at a high level. But Nathan McKinnon has at least won a Stanley Cup. McDavid's been there twice, but he's lost to the Florida Panthers both times. And then with the MLB, it's Shohei. That's obvious. And then with the NFL, as much as I hate the Ravens, I would love it if Lamar could be the face of the NFL. I would love it. You know, he's got the personality. People love watching Lamar.
Yep.
But he just can't. He's never been to the Super Bowl.
And he's not healthy enough.
No. Like, I would, like I said, yes, I hate the Ravens. Yes. But I still love Lamar. Like, if Lamar's playing, I want to watch. You know, I have a personal vendetta against the Browns Stadium. I'm not going to get into all that. But if the Ravens are in town, I'm like, okay, I really want to see Lamar.
Yeah. I mean, Jalen Hurts has the temperament to be the face of the week, but he doesn't have the personality to be the face of the week. Let's put it that way.
I agree, and I think the Eagles, the Eagles have been in one of the top teams, but they're such an up and down team. Like, they were one of the best teams. You know, that's why
don't I know it? You don't need to explain this to me. Don't I know it? I live for 365 days a year.
Yeah. So for me, like, I can't put Jalen Hurts in that conversation because you go from the highest of highs, like how he played in Super Bowl 57, to the follow-up season.
No, I'm just saying, if you want me to build what a face of a week should sound like in any sport, Jalen Hurts is the guy at the microphone.
Yeah. He does talk in a lot of riddles and Bible verses and stuff, though.
Well, where the NBA will get, excuse me, its new face of the week from college basketball. And Josh, I don't think this is being talked about enough, that this may be the biggest regular season college basketball has had in a long time. We could have a Final Four preview, the 4 number 1 seeds preview, however which way you want to look at it. There are stars all over the court this weekend as Duke takes on Michigan and Arizona takes on Houston.
Yes, I watched the game last night. Hilton Coliseum is special. Iowa State was trailing Houston by 10 late in the second half, and they came back to win that game. That was number 2 against number 6. Arizona lost twice in the past week against Kansas and Texas Tech. So,
and those were the only 2 losses, and one of those went to overtime.
Yes.
From what I've watched this year, to me, I think this game between Duke and Michigan is not only going to be the game of the year, but depending on what bracket they're in, I think this could be a national championship preview. I think they are the 2 deepest teams in the country. I think Michigan can just outshoot people, and they're long, they're great defenders. I question whether in the tournament they have enough guard play to go on, a championship run, but they very well could. And then Duke, like they have all the talent in the world.
Cam Boozer has
Cam
been.
Boozer is going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. You have on the Houston side, Kingston Flemings is going to be a top 5 pick in the draft this year. So, like, if you really want to get into college basketball, I would say this weekend would be the time to start watching.
Kingston Flemings reminds me of SGA to a certain extent. I don't know how much.
I believe they're the same size, 6'4", very similar style.
Yeah. So Kingston Fleming, he can hit that mid-range shot. He doesn't get to the free throw line as much as SGA. Whether you want to call him a free throw merchant or not, that's not what I'm saying here. I know you feel that SGA is a free throw merchant. Again, not part of the conversation.
Well, we're not talking about SGA here.
I only mentioned that because I was comparing him to.
No, I get it. Arizona is a very good defensive team as well. They can shoot the free. Sometimes I feel like they rely too much on the free.
Yeah, the Big 12 feels like last year's version of the SEC. But the problem is, once you get past like Texas Tech, Arizona, Iowa State, Kansas, Houston.
Baylor's in there, I believe, as well.
I wouldn't say Baylor as much.
Fair.
But like Kansas State isn't great. Cincinnati, not great. BYU, like they have.
Okay.
They're exactly. They're okay. But like last year's SEC, you had like 13 or 14 teams that got into the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, the Big 12 is definitely, I feel like the conference this year. I think the Big 10 is down a little bit again outside of Michigan. So
Michigan and Purdue are playing each other tonight. That's a top 7 matchup, I believe. The annoying part, though, is that game is only on Peacock. Like, I get it. The NBC is tied up with
Winter Olympics.
Winter Olympics, which is part of the reason I don't love that, the Big Ten isn't on ESPN anymore, because I would have loved for this Michigan-Purdue game to be on ESPN. But because it's like, why would I go out of my way to watch on Peacock?
Yes, Saturday. By the way, Arizona and Houston are 3 o'clock on ABC. Duke and Michigan is at 6 o'clock over on ESPN. I don't remember a weekend where we got literally 1 versus 3 and 2 versus 4 on the same day.
Yeah, I don't remember a game like that, a weekend like that. And I love that, we're in the midst of conference play, and yet we're getting a neutral site game, Michigan, Duke.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. Like, we got a neutral site game in Nashville over the weekend, Ohio State, Virginia. It came right down to the final seconds.
Well, we don't talk a ton of politics on this show, but I wanted to address this at the end of the show tonight because I do think it's fascinating what's going on in AEW right now, because we have talked a lot about our differences that we have in both professional wrestling between AEW and WWE. But the thing that's fascinating to me now is, with WWE, obviously, with, Paul Levesque being involved in the Trump administration, and AEW and what's going on here with Brody King, and what's going on with ICE in our country right now. I think the most fascinating thing is that it's no secret that in general professional wrestling fans do lean more left politically, and I think AEW does have an opportunity here to potentially do something with Brody King, carry that momentum, and CNN, Fox, all these political outlets have picked up that these ICE chants are happening for AEW. And what I wanted to say on this is, if AEW can legitimately do this right, and I'm not going to say have a storyline out of it, but maybe build Brody King up and use, these chants as something for good publicity for the company, it could bring AEW to new levels.
Yeah. Just to be clear, like Brody wears a T-shirt to the ring typically that says F Ice, and those are the chants that follow him. I didn't think it would follow him to Grand Slam Australia for his world title match against MJF, but they did. From what I understand, that's why he wasn't on Dynamite this week, was because it wasn't Tony Khan's decision. It sounds like it was Warner Brothers' decision to do that.
No. Did you not see? Warner Brothers came out and Tony Khan came out, vehemently denied that story that was published. He was actually on a flight to Australia during Dynamite.
Okay, so I did not hear about this. So that's the problem when you have this type of story. You get mixed coverage about it, and you're not entirely sure what to believe. Like what you could be saying could be 100% right, but at the same time, the stories I read about Warner Brothers saying no, he can't be on TV could also be right. So
Warner Brothers issued a statement saying we absolutely did not factor into that decision. Anybody that says that is, quote, categorically wrong.
But again, like, how am I supposed to believe that when?
Because they don't put out that strong of a statement if that's the truth.
Do you get what I mean, though? Like,
no. Do I believe that they don't want this controversy to mix in with the Trump administration? Absolutely, I do. But no, I don't think Warner Brothers would tell Tony Khan, you can't have this guy in the program. Because if they were involved, you know what they tell him? Stop the gimmick. Because they wouldn't have allowed it in Australia either.
Yeah. And by the way, I thought he did a great job in his program with MJF.
Well, and now he's one of the hottest baby faces in the company. I mean, people are talking about AEW.
Yeah.
Because of this story. That's what I'm saying. They for all my shots and little digs I take it at AEW, I'm serious. Use this as momentum because I think this could be a big thing for AEW if they do it right. I think you could create a homegrown star. Forget the politics. Create a homegrown star that you arguably haven't had since MJF. During his heyday a couple years ago when he was the guy, he was the heel in the business. Some people could make the argument he still is the heel, but I'm talking about universally. Everybody was like, that guy's a star. That's why a lot of fans thought he could go to WWE because he was that big of a star. That's what AEW needs right now is they need a babyface good story like that because they haven't had that in a while.
No, they haven't. You're right. And Brody very well could be that. It does concern me a little bit, like, because, the ice stuff is a prominent part of America right now. Whether you view it as a positive or negative, I'm not going to get into all that. Because, again, this is a sports show, not a political show.
Absolutely. But as I said before, the other interesting aspect of it, there's no denying that the people that run WWE at the top lean one way politically, and wrestling fans in general lean the other way. And WWE is viewed as the evil empire for one of the reasons is political reasons. Saudi Arabia being in bed with the president. This means more almost than a wrestling storyline. It's just this is the reason why it started.
Yeah. And no, I understand what you're saying about Warner Brothers putting out that statement, which I haven't seen that, by the way. So I'll have to go find it.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
And I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying you're wrong about any of that, but it's just like we hear such mixed stories about this type of thing. Like what you're saying is Warner Brothers put out this statement, but I've also heard, that Warner Brothers said, no, don't put him on the show. Like, so I've heard such mixed things. It's hard to know what actually is the truth. And by no means am I saying that, like, Warner Brothers didn't put out a statement denying it.
So here it is right out Sean Redstaff. Warner Brothers Discovery did not have any involvement in Brody King's upcoming AEW schedule. Any speculation to the contrary is categorically false. Brody is scheduled to appear during the next AEW event, which will air this Saturday on TNT and HBO Max.
By the way, that turned out to be a great show. If you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend it.
So, I mean, it's a very interesting thing, but again, it's going to be something that we have to follow. And in general, because, people are talking about the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards that came out were almost all won by AEW.
Yep, that is correct. By the way, I hated last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. That whole opening segment was just ridiculous. The Usos are just standing there for like 20 minutes. And then, I don't have an opening match. Let's do a 6-man tag. Okay.
Yeah, I did read something on the internet. It's a very interesting column. I should send it to you. It's about how the internet wrestling community and the live event crowd are very different when it comes to Jey Uso specifically.
By the way, how was Monday Night Raw? Because you went to last week's show, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Oh, remember, that's right.
We decided that, to be honest with you, because we spent so much money because TKO's jacking up all their ticket prices, which is why nobody could afford to go to WrestleMania anymore, because the difference between WrestleMania 40 and WrestleMania 42 tickets are $400 freaking dollars in the same section. Yeah, we just skipped that past Monday on Raw.
By the way, I will tell you this now. If Cody Rhodes wins the Elimination Chamber, all my excitement for WrestleMania 42, gone.
Well, that's a great transition because we're going to talk about the Elimination Chamber, I'm sure of it, on next week's show, along with any other topics that happen, excuse me, in the sports world from there. Apologize for my coughing here towards the end of the show tonight, but thank you.
I think we should end the show so you can go rest up.
Thank you for joining us tonight. As always, I'm Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon and Josh Ungar, the host of the Ungar to the Max Sports Room Talk Show. And
you go rest up. Bye.